thoughts are a little bit scattered on this topic. It's been very interesting to investigate. Society tries to sell you solutions to why your life is shit. Oh, you don't get enough sleep. And if you buy this gummy, then you'll get enough sleep. And, oh, there's a science behind it. And humans need this many hours of sleep. And, oh, well, you're depressed because you need exercise. And if you go get this exercise and if you buy this program, then, you can feel better and you can be stronger and all these different things. Oh, you feel like shit because you don't eat right. When really, we feel like shit because we were not built for this. We were not built for this. And I feel like I've heard people say this, but when I did the research, it became more and more evident that we literally have not given ourselves the evolutionary time necessary to be built for this. Because I was looking into like the domestication of animals, and it turns out, because I was interested in like human domestication, or like when were humans wild, and that change. And humans apparently domesticated themselves through choosing different types of behaviors and breeding out aggression, reactive aggression versus proactive aggression, which is planned and requires complex language. I need to slow down a little bit. Started breeding out for reactive aggression. Needed maybe a little bit more brain space, cognitive reasoning, relying on the community, working together. Working together necessitates, relying on each other. And it is not evolutionarily beneficial to the group to have people who are acting a fool, being aggressive, killing off people, all that stuff. So humans domesticated themselves. And when doing some research on Homo erectus, Homo neanderthal, and Homo heidelbergensis, we're just going to call that H, Homo H, Homo. Let's take a look at the year spans that this happens. Because Homo sapiens emerged 300,000 years ago. 300,000 years ago. Homo heidelbergensis, whatever, emerged 200,000 years ago, back to 700,000 years ago. So I made a little map to try to get an eye on this, because they apparently don't know if we came from Homo neanderthals or Homo, I don't even know how to say this, heidelbergensis. But that is not the point, because, what is it? Homo neanderthal, where's my Homo neanderthal? Emerged 40,000 years ago to 400,000 ago. 100,000 years ago. I'm way too excited about this. So when you think about it, there is evolutionary overlap of tens to hundreds of thousands of years. Tens to hundreds of thousands of years. Where's my little note? 6 million years ago, our ancestors became bipedal due to climate change. Which is really, the climate change was a really big driving force behind a lot of evolution. When it comes to a species being able to evolve, it has to do with sometimes societal stressors, but usually environmental stressors. So climate change was a big one for our human ancestors, with it spurring on bipedalness and an enlarged brain space. There was apparently a drought that could have wiped out Homo sapiens, getting the population down really, really small. But our brain got bigger around, I want to say it was like 200,000 years ago, because like around like the Homo sapiens. And when looking at the different, because I was like, well, how fast can something evolve? Like, what are the big differences between Homo sapiens and our brothers? So between sapiens and erectus, Homo erectus was 100,000 years ago to 1.89 million years ago. So we're looking at differences like a bigger brain, smaller teeth, smaller eye ridge. What does that say? Less heavy build, shorter legs, modern speech. Comparing to the more recent and relevant ancestors, the Homo heidelbergensis, whatever, Homo sapiens have a higher, more rounded brain case, smaller brow, narrower pelvis, less robust and muscular build. And when comparing to Neanderthals are shorter, what does I say, stockier, longer lower skull, larger nasal cavity, larger brain size, but not necessarily more cognitive abilities, because brain size can also have to do with body weight. So I'm thinking, like, okay, we domesticated ourselves over hundreds of thousands of years. And the real big kicker for human society was when agriculture was introduced due to climate change. It started, I think, to get colder. I was on the Smithsonian. I grabbed a lot of this, time data from the Smithsonian website, and I'll put it in the description. What was I talking about? Climate change and agriculture. 10,000 years ago. 10,000 years ago is when agriculture became something that Homo sapiens started using to have enough food, to not go extinct. That's great. Except for it wasn't great, because then it created power structures. Well, this video is not about that. As agriculture became a thing and more complex language became a thing, and, breeding out this aggression and becoming more proactively aggressive and having communities and social organizing, what was it? The first cities came around about 6,000 years ago. So about 4,000 years after agriculture, like an actual city. 4,000 years ago, 2,000 years after the first city, is the first empire in Mesopotamia, and also the first form of currency. So we're speeding up now. Now from hundreds of thousands of years, we're in tens of thousands of years, right? 10,000 years ago, agriculture. 6,000 years ago, we have a city. 4,000 years ago, we have an empire. And I think it stayed like that for a while. I mean, the wheel was invented 5,000 years ago. So that's right before the first empire. And right between, no. Yeah, right before the first empire and right after the first city. So, humans, or Homo sapiens as a species, are starting to kind of take on an identity with the wheel and the empires and the money and all this stuff. These things that are happening are still happening at a faster rate than humans can evolutionarily adapt for. Like, we are not species, we are not being selectively bred. We are choosing to breed in whichever way we choose. Usually now, instead of based off of environmental factors, societal factors. Before it's like, oh, who has the bigger brain size to be able to withstand or think up a solution for this problem we're facing. Or back in the Neanderthal or Homo erectus, maybe it's who's taller, faster, longer, leaner to get food, to get us out of this situation, to fight off predators, whatever. So now time's really speeding up. We think of 4,000 years ago as ancient history, but it's still happening faster than humans are probably capable to evolve for, without another thing that causes genetic changes and evolution is stress. So usually it's environmental stressors. Now it's turning into societal stressors. Nowadays, we but a big thing in society is money. We're a money-based culture, a consumerist culture. We are picking our partners, not necessarily, but people have more status and are more likely to be picked and spread their genetics if they have more money, if they're capable of creating more currency. And currency only came around 4,000 years ago. But nowadays, it's like completely different. So I'm like thinking, and I'm like, okay, well, when was electricity brought around? Electricity was brought around less than 200 years ago. Less than 200. Less than 200 years ago. We sometimes live to be 100 years old. How do you expect us to adapt within 1 or 2 generations, 3 generations to electricity? People, when electricity was introduced, literally had, I forget the name of it, but I was reading this book called The Invisible Rainbow, which is about the history of electricity, and talking about people who had electricity sensitivities, and they'd be sick and nauseous or weak or maybe tachycardia. I forget all the different things. There's like tons. It was called, I want to say some sort of neurosis. They called it a sort of neurosis. It was the first, I think it was, correct me if I'm wrong, I think it was the first time the word neurosis was used, was to diagnose these people who were suffering, which I don't think they recognized it at that time, but from electricity. And so I'm sure there was some sort of die-off of the population who could not withstand electricity. Humans who for hundreds of thousands of years evolved to be outside are now in the Industrial Revolution and with electricity are spending more time inside, more time working through the night. The light bulb allowed us to start working inside, and you had your candle, but now you have factories, and factories began around ish electricity times 200 years ago. Like, it's just crazy to think about. The internet is only 40 years old. We know people who are older than the internet. I feel like as a generation, a younger generation who's so submerged in the internet, it feels unanimous. Maybe that's not the right word. Ubiquitous. It feels ubiquitous. It feels like a constant, omnipresent truth that the internet has always been here. But it hasn't. And we literally, as a species, have not evolved for the internet. And so what's happening is, in my opinion, it makes me wonder is this why people are depressed? Is this why people are anxious? Is this why, because of these diets, what did I look up? Glyphosates got introduced 50 years ago. Roundup, the stuff they use on plants, weed killer. Our bodies have not evolved to withstand the stressors that we are currently facing, and thus there is disease rampant among the human population like no other. And it's kind of funny because with these big fat brains, we then found all these medical advances to kind of keep us going and keep us alive. And it's like, oh, you're having cardiac attack because you're too stressed from your modern day job and you eat too many fatty potato chips. Don't worry, we'll put a stent in your heart and we'll make sure that you live for another 20 years. Now, evolution is being tampered with. We are reacting to our stressors, and if medical intervention was not a thing, we would probably be a little bit more evolved or suited for the lifestyle we're living that is predominantly indoors, heavily affected by blue light, heavily affected by radiation, heavily affected by carcinogens, less nutrient-dense diets, higher fat in our foods and all these different things. And we're being told, oh, you're just not eating right. Oh, you just need to go out and exercise. You know why you need to go out and exercise? Because we evolved for hundreds, not just thousands, hundreds of thousands of years to live outside. And I always thought that people, when they were like, oh, just go to the gym, that was like so weird. You say go to the gym because it's the closest thing we have to imitating the life we evolved for. I was talking to my friend on the phone. I was like, if I had a depressed person on my hands, I would probably sooner put them in a social sport than tell them to go to the gym, to get that social connection, plus being outside, plus being active, to get kind of sort of closer to what we evolved for. And it's easy to feel like we're going fucking crazy when it's like we're medicating ourselves and we're feeling sick and we're feeling tired and something just doesn't feel right, and there's all this mental stress. So, our biology is reacting, saying, hey, you now have an anxiety disorder. Hey, you now have a mood disorder and a depression disorder. I probably don't know one single person without some sort of mood or personality disorder. Do you think our ancestors had mood or personality disorders? They distinctly evolved to survive their environment, and our environments are evolving past us. Now we are socially evolving creatures, and like I said, like with the money thing, like we kind of pick our partners based off of like, where we're at in life or where we want to go or all these different things. So it's like, okay, now how can this creature, this human, provide itself with the most money and still be alive? And then that becomes like a dominant trait, like resource gathering, essentially, but in this societal framework that's based around money and currency, which, like I said, only emerged 4,000 years ago. It's just so crazy to me to think that, like, because they're always trying to sell us something and make us feel like we're crazy. No, like, we literally started agriculture, and from agriculture created this downward spiral. I don't know if any of y'all have read Civilized to death, but it's really enlightening, by Christopher Ryan, and it talks about how through agriculture it was kind of like the metaphor of someone holding on to a hot air balloon and it's taking off, and before you realize to let go, you're already up too high, and it's like, oh shit. I feel like that's where we are with technology. It's like AI and quantum physics and all this stuff, and it's like, we are animals. Yes, we domesticated ourselves to an extent, but we are still animals, a part of the animal kingdom. Excuse me? And so I've been really pondering about all the different ways in which we try to separate ourselves from the natural world with clothes and cars and this consciousness, which really it feels like human consciousness has over-evolved to a point where it's no longer helpful for evolution because we're just out here having existential crises. How is that helpful? Oh, but don't worry, we'll drug you. We'll drug you and make you feel better, and then go back to work. Get back in the office where, the problem started. What the fuck? What the fuck is happening? Yeah, like I said, I grabbed most of this information off the Smithsonian website, which was so cool to look at. Like, I saw this fucking YouTube reel about how they gave Starlink to some tribe to try to help them in case of emergencies. Them bitches became addicted to the phones. Because they're designed to be, like, there's nothing wrong with us. We are being targeted and exploited explicitly. We're being explicitly exploited at every turn. And we have not evolved for this. And so I'm really curious to see how humans do evolve. You remember when that image was going around about, like, what it looked like if humans evolved to survive car crashes? And it's like this grossly grotesque, fat, like, thick-boned, like, they drew a monster, basically. It was kind of crazy. I wonder how humans are going to evolve to this stress. Because people do kill themselves from depression. People do, like, have these mood disorders that greatly affect their lives and keep them from participating in the gene pool. And it's crazy because the population is growing at such a fast rate, but that doesn't affect evolution. Like, you still have to have enough generations. Like, we're not just because there's more people doesn't mean there's more generations. Like, we're still having babies at the same rate that we've ever had babies at. And, you know, when you go and you breed animals or foxes, they have a much shorter lifespan, and you can get in more generations, and people are selectively taking the prime example of what they want. And humans aren't doing that. Humans aren't saying, who's the healthiest? Humans are only going to have sex with the healthiest, happiest, richest people. Because look around. That's just not how it works. It's just so interesting to think about. It's got me in like such a little rabbit hole. And it's funny because it's like, I feel like people have been saying this, that like we can't keep up. But now looking back at like the history of humans, I feel like to understand where we are today, it doesn't take looking at like historical, like in 1900s or the 1800s. Like, it takes looking far back into history, human ancestors, and it's like, oh, like, no shit we feel this way. Like, no shit, like, we've got SIBO and IBS and candida overgrowth and cancer, and because we're fucking ruining it. I try to end this on a happier note. I try to make peace with it all by saying, hey, every species has its end, and we're getting close to our end, and so we're just kind of creating it for ourselves, and so we're just here to try to be as happy as we can be for as long as we can be, and hopefully, you know, the homeostasis of the world will return once again. Humans will eventually go extinct through creating a sort of climate change, I assume, or maybe nuclear war, and then guess what? New life's gonna come out of it. New life that is going to start its own little thing. It's so funny that all of this started just because we were like, let's be proactively aggressive and not reactively aggressive. Let's like have cognitive abilities and like think, and like let's use our brains as a tool to try to, and then now we're here. Look what we did. Yeah, that's really all I have to say.